Hey everybody, I'm Charting Man Dan with the Chart Guys, trader and technical analyst. We're going to check in on crypto and altcoins. I sold some Bitcoin from 7+ years ago, and I'll tell you why. First things first. So I really wanted to buy a fancy car, and I bought the Lambo GS 850,000. No. So I sold some Bitcoin because, number one, it's up 4,000 whatever percent. I sold 20% of my longer term positions from back in 2017. These positions are essentially gravy in the sense that I was fortunate enough to change my life in 2017, day trading crypto and short-term swing positions. So this is something that I've just left alone, haven't touched it, haven't thought about it. And now for me, we are in such a period of euphoria in all markets. I'm not talking about crypto. Crypto's probably the least euphoric market out of anything that I watch. Again, we just had quantum stocks run 1,000 to 2,000% in 5 to 6 weeks. But the reason for me is, number one, we're over 100,000, that milestone. Definitely want to take a little profit over 100,000. Number two, the Trump meme coin. Without a doubt, I would not be able to live with myself if I didn't take any profit with that as a potential toppy signal sign. I hope we keep going up. Psychologically, it's very easy for me to be very happy if we shoot up to 150,000. I don't think we're at a top. If I thought we're at a top, I'd be selling 80% of my position. But I also know I'm not going to nail a top. I'm going to sell partial at 105,000 like I did. I'll sell another 20% at 130,000. I'll sell another 20% at 160,000. And I will keep exiting on the way up into strength. And what will stop me from exiting anything more will be long-term consolidation. I'm not going to sell into weakness. I'm not going to sell into fear. I'm only going to sell into strength. And again, it's where I'm at personally, my net worth, my gains over the last 4 years, since the CVID bottom across all markets, you have the S&P 500 up 200% from those lows. The average rate of return for the S&P 500 is 10% a year. In my opinion, we will see a period that balances that out. If we've averaged from the CVID lows, and I know I'm cherry picking a low point, but if we're up essentially 40% every year since then, more than 40% a year, and the average is 10%, that only balances out one way. And I will happily have cash to rebuy lower if crypto goes through any kind of meaningful pullback. So everybody has different spots where they're at. I love the people that, will throw me shade that don't have positions from 2017, but it's just a personal decision, and I'll keep you posted on what I'm doing. At least I'm being transparent. So now let's look at the charts. Bitcoin weekly time frame. My simple statement is we have absolutely nothing to fear as a bull if weekly EMA 12 is support. Weekly EMA 12 has been support at this point for 4.5 months. I saw one of the comments, and I'll interact with you all in a bit. One of the comments said, the ETFs ruined Bitcoin trading. It's choppy. It's not clear. I hear that a lot, and I understand the frustration, but you just have to zoom out. Look at the weekly chart. Look at how clear this weekly chart has been. All the way back to when Bitcoin was in a weekly downtrend for 7, 8, 11 months, I forget what it was. The first weekly uptrend confirming at 18,400 marked the long-term bottom. We then had a weekly downtrend confirm here back in March. That weekly downtrend confirmed with the break of 60,700, and we then remained in a weekly downtrend for 4 to 5 months. We then confirmed the first weekly uptrend, and we've now been in a weekly uptrend for 4 months. There have been no fake outs in any meaningful way on the weekly time frame. So if you're getting frustrated on the hourly, the 4-hour, whatever time frame, I cannot suggest enough zooming out. And the decrease in volatility of Bitcoin would suggest that's the better way to trade it. Back in, again, when things were less liquid and things were more volatile in 2017, 2018, I was taking crypto scalp trades where I was buying and selling within 5 minutes, max full position. And the reason I was able to do that is because you'd get a 15% move in 3 minutes. We do not have that environment anymore. And short-term trading, especially when you factor in fees, short-term trading of Bitcoin is not the place to be. If you want to be a short-term scalp trader, you're looking at altcoins, or better yet, if you're in the US, you're fee-free and trade. I mean, look at NVDA, the largest company in the world, or it was, with its 18% drop yesterday, and now we're up 8% from the lows. I mean, there's so much, it's more volatile than Bitcoin, and it's free to trade, and there's way more dollar volume and liquidity. So there are much better instruments to day trade than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is for swing trading with how it is now evolved as an instrument in markets. So all that said, weekly is our guide, and the weekly is just fine. Another reason why I sold a little bit is because I never like bull flags confirming with no follow through. So it's just a little bit cautious. And I'm going to talk about the opposite. When flags confirm with no follow through, they often mark reversals. And again, it's not doing that for Bitcoin right now, but I'm going to give some examples where flags confirming with no follow through marked some bottoms. NASDAQ just fine. We had the big flush yesterday. You've heard it all before. DeepSeek, if you don't know what it is, look it up. Led to, again, the way that markets are structured right now and the automated trading and the bots and the algos, everything is connected. It's just like globalization with markets. You know, it's why something in Japan can impact US markets. It's because everything is tied together. And so over the weekend, we get this news that's bearish semiconductors. We know semiconductors are going to be down Monday morning. They dropped way more than I thought they would, but knew they were going to be down. So we know semis are going to be down. That means we know the NASDAQ's going to get dragged down. If you drag the NASDAQ down, you know the S&P 500 is going to get dragged down. But the way it played out, look at how the NASDAQ opened futures trading Sunday night, and it just completely dumped for a few hours. And Bitcoin responded to it. And honestly, the market was late. Look at Bitcoin on that open. You know, Bitcoin, we got the information that told us semis are going to drop. The NASDAQ is going to drop again. I thought it would be a couple percent, not a ton of percent, 5% plus. But Bitcoin didn't react to that. You know, it had days to react and it didn't. And it only reacted when futures opened. And then that correlation kicked in. And then we drop, 7% very quickly. So I was surprised that more traders, the beauty of Bitcoin being a 24-hour market is if you are a trader that is long semiconductors over the weekend and you get this news Saturday and you're digging Saturday and you're digging Sunday and say, the market's going to react bearish to this. I want to hedge a little bit and protect. Well, nothing is open in the markets. So good luck. Only thing you can do is hedge through Bitcoin. You could take some short Bitcoin just in case. And that would have worked out well. So just something to think about. And that is one of the valuable aspects of Bitcoin as a 24/7 market when your hands are tied elsewhere. But in the end, decent bounce. And, we had a tightening range that broke bear. Jungle Funk Joey was highlighting multiple times on Twitter and in the chat room and things. And he was right, where if you get a news flow can help you track reversals as well. Where if you have a chart that's all bear and down forever and it's nothing but bad news, and then it starts to stop reacting to bad news, a bottom is likely coming in sooner rather than later. This was the opposite. This was Bitcoin, up at all-time highs, no follow through on the new all-time high, but positive headline after positive headline. And if you cannot hit a new high when you're getting all these positive headlines coming out of Trump and the administration and strategic reserve and all that stuff, there's a lot of people selling. The only reason we're not popping higher is because there's a lot of supply that is keeping us contained. And so it can be taken as a little bit of a sentiment clue. And so, again, the tightening range had a hard bear break. Now, again, you zoom out, there's no red flags, but the bulls do have some work to do to regain momentum in their favor. This current daily bounce, we could say anything under, for me, I'm going to say anything under 107.2 is a daily lower high. We have to see the bulls regain the daily uptrend. We've got the FOMC tomorrow at 2 p.m. You better believe 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, Bitcoin's going to see a big spike in volatility as it correlates with the NASDAQ and what the NASDAQ's reaction is. So be aware that that is coming. So I'm on the weekly, and there are no red flags. we're just a little cautious. I mean, there are a few little red flags that I just mentioned, but in terms of price action, there's not much in terms of red flags. Just a little be cautious mindset. Also, another factor for me is I'm not going to, whoa, QM, what are you? I'm not going to be surprised in the slightest if and when we backtest the previous resistance, now ideally support, in the low 70,000s. Again, I don't think it's imminent that we're heading down there, but next time we head back there to back test it, it'll be fairly logical. Well, that makes sense. When markets, find new price discovery in a new range, they back test where we came from. That's volume profile analysis that Lamont does on our YouTube channel every weekend. Dominance. So we are looking for a dominance. Are we getting an alt season? Again, I've been saying this for what feels like a very long time at this point. I do not think we will see an altcoin season comparable to 2021 ever again. Why? Because it was the perfect storm. Even the chart guys as a service, right? We're a service that teaches people about trading education, and things like that. And it was the perfect storm of CVID, where you got everybody's at home, you've got stimulus checks. That was the peak of people interested in learning how to trade that we're going to see anytime soon. It's not even going to come close unless that happens again. And so it's the same mindset with the altcoin space. You had the perfect storm of here's free money, stay at home, you've got nothing to do, stay inside. What are you going to do? You're going to watch the flashing numbers and you're going to click the buttons and hope to hit it big. I do not think we will see that kind of environment again. Does that mean alts can't go up? No, not at all. I just mean that the close your eyes, throw the dart at the wall, and make a bunch of money in altcoins. I don't think it's going to happen again. I think many altcoins will not come close to their 2021 highs. Many will, not many, a handful at least will surpass it, and they'll be the leaders. And right now, we're going to go, at the end of this video, we're going to go through a bunch of these altcoins and see just how starkly different these setups are with where they stand in terms of clear relative strength and very clear relative weakness. But for alts to perform, you must break this equilibrium bearish and lose those higher lows. And right now we're approaching the last top. So in an ideal world, we get a new confident all-time high in Bitcoin, which leads to dominance topping out. When Bitcoin tops out, Bitcoin then trades sideways for a week, and then the altcoins rally up to their recent highs, and the dominance chart loses these weekly higher lows. The simple statement is if the dominance chart does not lose these weekly higher lows, there is no alt season happening. Again, little pockets, XRP is definitely performing. It's very worthwhile, but it's looking at things under a microscope individually, one by one, as opposed to as a whole, as a conglomerate. ETH, I'm watching this daily falling wedge. When was the last daily falling wedge we were looking at? It was Bitcoin. Remember when Bitcoin was doing it? So this was the Bitcoin daily falling wedge that we were watching. And the NASDAQ had a daily falling wedge that we were watching. And we broke bull. Wow, look at those back tests. I stopped watching this, but back test and hold, back test and hold. Anyways, it was a falling wedge that broke bull. And ETH is hoping for the same. I've been watching this for a week now. We rejected from resistance after I drew it. We bounced off support after I've drawn it. And we can easily stay within this pattern for a bit longer. But this is my visual guide until it breaks one way or the other. ETH BTC set at 150 times. If we're in a weekly downtrend, nothing is changing. We're still testing the lows. We could see a big bounce. We could see ETH break that falling wedge bull and a big bounce in ETH BTC. And it's possible that that big bounce just gives us another weekly lower high. There is a lot of work that needs to be done on this chart, as we know, and we haven't even begun to see any bulls prove anything on this chart. So we're all watching for it, right? We're all watching for when is it ETH's turn? Trump's company, whatever it is, Liberty, whatever, they're buying a bunch of ETH. And, was watching ETC and ENS recently to try and get going. And when ETH rejected from this resistance, that took the steam away from those names. We had ETC, it did break a resistance, but again, a lack of follow through because Big Daddy ETH didn't do it, but it was an inverse head and shoulders that confirmed and a little bit of a fake out in the sense that we couldn't clear this resistance and we double topped and then rolled back over. I made an attempt to long ENS for a inverse head and shoulders, and that failed as well and stopped out. Smaller swing position, but it was the same mindset. Can we confirm that inverse head and shoulders? And the answer was no, we can't, because ETH is still not proving anything. But if and when ETH BTC gets a weekly bounce and ETH breaks that falling wedge, look to these other Ethereum related names to get some love as well. So the altcoins that are performing, XRP very clearly doing so, nice little steady drop of bullish headlines. The most recent new high that we got, very convincing comparatively. You know, the new high here by 17%. Bitcoin's new high was by what, 1%? Less than 1%. Very big difference. So this is a bull break with follow through. The weekly uptrend remains our guide. You know, we dipped down as the whole crypto space dipped down with semiconductors, but bulls bought that dip aggressively. And the hourly RSI was crushed. And the 4-hour RSI, did we get a super stack here? Probably a 4-hour super stack. Probably just missed the, no, we did, 4-hour super stack. So again, the super stack is when a bunch of time frames align in extremes together. So if the 4-hour is firing, it means the 4-hour, the hourly, the 30-minute, the 15-minute, the 5-minute are all crushed together. And bulls bought that dip. And so we've got space now where if we top out and we fail this resistance zone, we've got a good amount of space for XRP to try a daily higher low compared to where we came from, knowing the bulls must regain a daily uptrend. But again, this name on the weekly chart is holding on so much better than so many others. ADA, weekly equilibrium, still battling for this EMA 12. So we have our high, low, lower high, and bulls must hold 76 for a higher low. And if we get it, we're going to look to keep tightening up here. We had a beautiful 12-hour equilibrium on Sol. You cannot get more clear than this. And it broke bear yesterday. But high, low, lower high, higher low, lower high, higher low, lower high, bear break. Bear break was at 246.33. We dropped down to 220. What's that? A 10% drop very quickly. So again, a trader loves when equilibriums get this tight. The only way that I'm playing equilibriums when they break are if you are this tight. Everybody is watching the same thing. I like to position within equilibriums very often, but if I'm going to play a break, it's got to be that tight. You know, it breaks bear, you sell a third of the position after a 3% drop. Now you're cozy and comfortable with your break even. You trim a little bit more when you're down 8% and just scaling out to ensure that you're in complete control. So Sol at this point, we're looking for a weekly higher low, but we got to keep an eye on this uptrending resistance line now that we have a bull break with no follow through. Uptrending support line, again, just some visual guides to be keeping an eye on. I'd actually use a different anchor point, more recent price action, just a little something like that. But a weekly higher low is the most likely scenario. We just got to keep an eye on that uptrending resistance line. Trump. So Trump is an example of a bear flag confirming with no follow through, leading to a temporary bottom. So this 12-hour chart was a bear flag that confirmed on the break of 25.71. We saw follow through of 4%. And then we get a bounce of 23%, 20 or more. I very often use flags that confirm with no follow through as my entry point. And I did it today with NVDA. You know, my game plan for NVDA today was, all right, I'm watching the low of yesterday's support, 2-minute free fall. Awesome. I want to get as extended as possible into support. 2-minute stair step drop, RSI in the teens. So my game plan was I'm entering one position just above the low of yesterday. I'm entering my second position when the low of yesterday breaks. Why am I entering when a support level breaks? because at that point, we are so extreme on the short-term time frames that I anticipate we're not going to get any follow-through on a bear break, at least initially. And so if we don't get follow through initially, that allows me to position the 5 minute, the 2 minute, the 1 minute. We're all in the teens at a key support level. And so I enter those two positions. I sell half on the initial bounce. I get my break even at the low of the day. And now I'm still in that position. And that's my trading style. Get risk free, get comfortable, let it play out. But all that said, technically a bear flag confirming by breaking the low of yesterday, but no follow through. It shows a lack of acceptance at that range, and it shows bulls aggressively buying the dip. And so Trump now, bulls are going to be hoping that there's a lack of acceptance down in the 25, 26 area here. And it's a potential inverse head and shoulders. So if we fail 32.30, which it looks like we are, that's another 12-hour lower high. We then must hold the low of 24.58 and then confirm the trend change. Again, what are my thoughts and opinions on this coin? I gave them in the last video. I don't care at all. It's flashing numbers that are tradable. So I have no problem with people still looking to trade this name because we will see eventually a daily bounce that goes 30%. We'll see a weekly bounce that goes whatever percent. You just got to be protected because we can always see another leg down. We certainly know that much, but just another tool and plenty of trading opportunity. 4 hours nice and clear too. Like stair steps. Look at these stair steps. Stair step down. It breaks bull at 28.25. We then go up a good bit further. Worthwhile trade. We then break the stair step at 30.28. We then stair step down for 20%. And now we're in a stair step back up, and that has broken. These stair steps have been beautiful for trade signals. Again, just short term, no home runs. But if you're happy with 5%, keep an eye on those stair steps. Link, we talked about this potential megaphone in the last video I put out, I assume, because this was drawn on my chart. So this is worth paying attention to. Uptrending resistance, downtrending support. Bulls want to form a weekly higher low compared to 1783, but definitely going to keep an eye on these trend lines because they are valid. Let's go down our alt list here, and then I'll read the chat in just a moment. And look at the difference. So we know XRP is a lead bull. We know what it looks like on the weekly, nice and strong. Even ADA, not nearly as strong, but at least it's holding. Weekly EMA 12, trying to tighten up. Some of these names just hit 4-month lows. FET just hit the lowest price it's hit in 4+ months. Weekly downtrend, heading back to many month lows. RNDR, multiple month lows. You look at the longer term chart, the monthly chart, or let's go 2 month. It's just a long-term equilibrium tightening up. This is not a bullish weekly chart. Atom, fresh lows, trying to be a falling wedge. Mana, testing the lows. Again, these things are just nowhere near as strong. Hey, pun intended, near. Look at this wall on near. We got a wall of support and a wall of resistance, and we are just range bound. Nothing changing as long as we're ping-ponging around there. INJ back to a base. Anyways, my point is there's way more altcoins that are not looking good versus the ones that are looking good. As you all know, that's why sentiment in crypto is so poor with Bitcoin at $100,000. Because the altcoins are not doing what people want them to do. Just ensure that you are paying attention to relative strength and relative weakness. And the number one way to differentiate, if you're watching 20 coins, put the coins that are holding weekly EMA 12 on one list as stronger and put the coins that are not holding it on the other list as weaker. And it's important to constantly be checking in on that relative strength and relative weakness. Algo trying to grind that EMA 12. It would be on the stronger side. OP at its lows, weak. Dot weak. BNB trying to cling. It's a potential weekly equilibrium. So LTC is still holding the EMA 12. XLM still holding it. Sol still holding it. All right, reading the chat. Sold half of Bitcoin and bought land. My man. That is, I sold a bunch of crypto in 2017 and bought land. And again, I always am so fascinated by the argument on social media where people are like, that's a bad decision, property taxes and all that, where you cannot quantify life experiences. There's no number you can attach to that. And there is absolutely nothing like having your own home or your own land, the experiences that you have there. I instantly just thought of a sexual experience I had on my land. That's not worth a Bitcoin. Anyways, congrats. Do I think ETH will return to all-time highs eventually? I sure hope so. A lot of, my long-term no-touch position is a good chunk Ethereum. I think Ethereum is just a beautiful equilibrium. Massive move up, massive pullback, lower high, higher low, potentially another lower high. It's a huge red flag for me if we lose 2100. Gotta hold that level. But, trying to find 6-week time frame. Just viewing that as one move up, one move down, lower high, higher low, lower high. We must form this higher low and break bull. How would that shape up? That would be ETH BTC finding a bottom. That would be ETH obviously heading back up to 4,000 plus. And that would be the dominance chart setting a long-term, like 6-month lower high. If this is going to shape up. But I hope so. I will definitely be benefiting if it does. Stocks went nowhere if you adjust for money printed. SPY ran like mad because money supply increased by 40 cents. Yeah, I know, but that doesn't change anything. Gains are gains. It's still the same amount of dollars in the account. Doesn't mean we can't go down. Shout out to Lamont indeed. Desync USDT. Is it a weekly inverse head and shoulders? I don't see it. This is just a straight up equilibrium. I'd call that a double top, and this is an attempt at a double bottom. The bulls must confirm a daily uptrend to hold this weekly support, and then we would scout a lower high. Key battle at that support. But I don't see an inverse head and shoulders on the weekly. How do I think about taxes on your 2017 BTC position? I didn't think about it once. Taxes are a part of the game. I pay estimated taxes quarterly when I'm being a good boy. Otherwise, I pay late fees. But it's 15%. It doesn't, who cares? If you're up 4,000%, 15% shouldn't mean anything. Tesla price action is going to be determined by earnings. What is that, tomorrow? Do I think Bitcoin goes lower from here and reverses for a while? I mean, at this point, again, EMA 12. Close below weekly EMA 12 and I'll say yes. Close above it and I'll say nothing to be concerned about. It is a potential rising wedge. Anytime you break, I mean, that's why we were on top of this falling wedge, right? Because we kept breaking support with no follow through. Well, now we have a resistance break with no follow through. We have to start keeping our eyes out for the possibility of a rising wedge. What would that look like if it's a rising wedge? It would look like that eventually rolls over into the 80,000s. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it the most probable scenario? I won't say yes at this point. You know, you could say 60% it won't happen, 40% it does happen. Whatever your beliefs are, you absolutely need this factored into your game plan. You should never be shocked by price action. I mean, I was a bit shocked with how much NVDA dropped yesterday, but quickly got over it. Okay, over leveraged longs getting flushed out. You know, the backdrop of a very positive environment and headline right before a very bearish negative one. You know, a ton of people were over leveraged long. But you know, should we be surprised if Bitcoin drops to the 80,000s from here? Absolutely not. Should we be surprised if Bitcoin heads up to 115,000? Absolutely not. Prepare for both. Have a game plan for both. Every single chart that I look at essentially comes to a fork in the road. It can either do this thing or this thing. This thing has an 80% chance. This thing has a 60% chance. Whatever it is, but you know that other side is always on the table. And so you have to prepare for it. I'm now just, the funny thing about reading chat comments is it's on a delay. So I'm reading all the comments. So I have a willow, it's a weeping cypress tree. I love cypress trees. They've got the big knobs. They're in the marshes. I've got a few on my property, but I've got a weeping one. And it's smaller, and it's like a weeping willow in the sense that it comes down and touches the ground. And so if you go inside, it's like you're in a completely covered, shaded, secret room. And you have sex in there. So everybody go buy weeping trees and have sex in them. That's the point of trading crypto, right? If ETH loses 2,100, would I sell? I don't think so. I think, you know, I will not sell any long-term positions in fear. Fear is when I buy long-term positions. And again, long ago, I accepted these positions are $0. Maybe I would trim some, but it wouldn't be a sell everything kind of move. So again, Litecoin's fine if weekly EMA 12 holds. It's a tightening range. LTC BTC is trying to do something here. What's it trying to do? Go up. But what's on the table here? Look at EMA 12 and 26, the red and blue lines. After they cross bear, they stay bear for a very long period of time. This one crossed bull, we got a big leg up. Granted, very short term, but it was a big leg up. Here they crossed bull, big leg up. They're trying to cross bull for the first time in years since they crossed bear. They crossed bear almost 2 years ago, and it's trying to cross bull again. And we have two prior examples that when that happens, there is a solid leg up. And so this is just a tightening range that could potentially see a leg up. It's worth watching for. And of course, LTC USD is tightening up as well. Anything above 92.51 is a weekly higher low to remain in equilibrium. So, you know, you can definitely justify giving a bit more attention to Litecoin for the possibility that this breaks bull than maybe we otherwise do. SHIB. Do we have weekly EMA 12? No. It's clearly one of the weaker coins. It's a long-term equilibrium. We had our huge move up. We had a huge pullback. We had our lower high, And now we're scouting a higher low compared to 1078. And it's entirely possible that we remain within this equilibrium for another 3+ months. Maybe it takes another few weeks or another month to find a higher low. Then maybe we bounce for a couple of months. Next thing you know, it's April, the sun's shining, the flowers are budding, the birds are singing, life is great, and we're still in the equilibrium. Can't wait. How are the miners doing? Not well. Crypto miners have been doing poorly. I mean, look at this. You show me this chart, I don't want to trade it at all. It's just sideways for a year and a couple months. 14 months of sideways. Yeah, there's plenty of big volatility and opportunity within that. But that's MARA. CLSK is just nothing. Riot. My point is there's just so much opportunity elsewhere. Ooh, I've been keeping an eye on that one. That's potentially breaking bear. It's all about $9.99 on Riot. But my point is there is so much opportunity cost in markets. And I know that, people that aren't professional traders, you can't be watching everything. You can't be jumping around to everything. But for those that are putting a significant amount of time in the markets, opportunity cost is very valuable. And when you do have things that are, again, I just keep going back to these quantum stocks, but the quantum stocks in a 6-week span just did the move that altcoin bulls are hoping and praying for. They just did it. And so jumping in on that is the way to go. 1,500% in less than 2 months. Everybody's looking at cannabis and hoping that happens, and altcoins and hoping that happens, but just right on their noses, little thing called quantum, ripping out of nowhere. How have my annual returns compared to previous years when I did swing trading less than I am now? Less. I did a little social media video at the end of this past year, and I said, 2024 aggregate stocks and crypto, probably my third or fourth best year ever in 14 years. But top year in terms of dollars per hour spent in front of the computer. And that was intentional. My goal is to not be living on my computer after putting in my 10,000 plus hours. And so absolutely, if I'm day trading all day and I'm on top of everything to the minute, I'm going to be making more money. I will never, in cryptocurrency, I will never make as much money as 2017 to 2018. And I've accepted that. I'm not going to try to. It was a very different environment, and I will never put in that much time and effort into a market again because I exceeded all my goals, and you reach a point where the time is not worth the money. And so I actively am giving up, maximizing my dollar return to balance life out. And in my observation, all traders go through that. You go through the obsession phase if you're going to be a professional trader and make it. You have to have the obsession phase of thousands of hours where it's the most important thing in your life. And then after you achieve your goals, you scale back and you focus on other things. And that's the way that it should be. Otherwise, you have a problem. You have a gambling problem if you can't shift. And it's unsustainable. What you do in the obsession phase to become a professional trader is not sustainable over decades. You will die. All right, a couple more here. We're going to wrap it up. If you're leveraged and in the red, what now? That's so hard. Honestly, if my friend asked me that question, I need to know what their situation is in their personal life. What's your income with your job? What's your, what kind of reserves do you have for an emergency fund? Like all these little details. What are your monthly expenses? All of those are factors in me answering that question. And obviously I don't have any of those details. You have to pick a point where you pull the plug. I mean, and obviously the hindsight lesson is you do that before you ever enter the trade, because if you don't, that's how you end up in these positions. Again, I've done it all, right? I've done every single mistake. I know what it's like to wake up every single day, and the first thing that you think about when you wake up is you remember the red. You remember the money you lost, and you have that sinking feeling in your stomach. That's the worst way to live life. And I've gone through months when I was bag holding before I knew to put a stop loss on every trade, and I would wake up 80% of my days and start the day with a sinking, remembering of the position that I'm in. We have to prevent ourselves from feeling that. And we do so with stop losses. We have any single position you enter in has a level where you say, if this happens, I was wrong and I'm out of the trade. And so hopefully, I mean, every lesson's painful, but it's key that we learn from those lessons and do not repeat them. And that's the other thing. I've never used leverage. I trade on margin in my stock account, but I never exceed my cash balance. I've never took a leverage trade in crypto in my life. But I also know somebody that started with $500 and used leverage and made a bunch of millions. So what I would say is don't use leverage, just because I know the majority of people do not have the discipline to use leverage correctly. You have to have some kind of extreme discipline, some kind of proving it to yourself in other avenues of life. You need years of experience if you're going to be using leverage. Because any scenario where there have been so many trades where I make one mistake, and because I'm not on leverage, it's a big hit, but it's, the big mistakes that I've made in my career, my P&L chart is up, big drop down. That marks the low, that one mistake, a big drop down, and then it's just grind back up, and I eventually get back to that high. But if it's leverage, and if the possible scenario is all the way down to zero, there are scenarios in my trading career where if it was a leveraged trade, I would have blown up. And so we just have to protect our capital. All right, I appreciate you all tuning in. 127 likes. I didn't even have to ask. It must have been all the sex talk. All right, we'll talk about sex every stream from here on out. One time, as a joke with a newer girlfriend, she put me on the TV at one of my YouTube videos while we were doing it. That's when I made it.